everybody, and welcome back to another video. So today I have an amazing original what-if story to tell to you all. I had an absolute blast writing it, and I just know you guys are going to enjoy what I have to tell here. Before you watch this video, however, make sure you've seen part 1 to What If Prince Winter Was an Animus. I'll link it right now on the top right corner of your screen, so you can check it out if you haven't yet. Once you're done, come back to this one. But before we begin with this, I do have some things I'd like to preface that make this alternate universe different. For one, Tundra is the queen here and not Glacier. You'll end up finding out why I chose that once you dove deeper into the story. Icicle is not present here. She exists in this universe but is not around for the events of the story, and you'll see why. And lastly, you will notice that I did Winter's blood color correctly this time. It was a mere oversight in the previous video, but I ensured not to repeat it. We also have some new video and thumbnail art drawn by Starry Skies. There's a link to their social media down below. Thank you so much for making this amazing art, Sparkles. Anyways, I've kept you all waiting long enough. I have to first give a shout out to my patrons, and then we'll get right on into the craziness you'll see here. Big thanks to 𝙈𝙊𝙍𝙁𝙬, Slightest Wild, Fizz, Thistle, Noobto, Pyronuke, Avril, and Pancake for their continued support. You guys mean the world to me. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. Winter, come on! We're going to be late for the ceremony. The young Icewing jumped to his feet. I'm getting ready, I promise, Winter shouted back. I didn't forget about today. It's all everyone's been talking about for the past year. Sure, Winter had overslept, and he was internally begging for Hailstorm to not open the door and see that for himself. But ever since rescuing his brother, he had been so relaxed. It was easier to appreciate all the things he realized he overlooked. All those years without Hailstorm were a nightmare Winter thought he would never wake from. He had the guilt of knowing his brother was locked in a cage, cold and hungry, while the young Animus was being treated with the same respect as the queen. Hailstorm did not have the luxury of waking up to views of green and blue skies, lighting up the world for miles. He grew too familiar with charred gray walls and blistering, unending warmth. Sweat beaded at every scale, licking away at Hailstorm's life force, eroding at him like water slowly dripping on stones. Even worse than all of that was the Queen of the Skywings herself, and the scars she left him. Winter was left not only with the guilt of losing his brother, but a secret worthy of death. He had used his magic to save Hailstorm. Twice. He told the royal family a falsified story of Hailstorm's rescue. For the past year, everyone had believed it. After all, Winter was one of their best. And yet, the feeling of anxiety that came with his lie stuck with the Animus for all that time. He feared what would happen to Hailstorm if everyone knew the truth, or what would become of his own soul if he used his magic again. And while rescuing Hailstorm brought about peace, with it came all that fear of discovery. Animus magic is cursed, Winter thought to himself as he slipped on jeweled necklaces. I've seen what it does to dragons, and for the selfish reason I used it? What if I never come back from this? What if it haunts me forever, in the small but present way it does? Is it my own guilt, or the magic's wickedness gnawing away at me slowly? I don't want to lose Hailstorm again. I can't. But what if someone comes in the way of that? What if they realize what I did? And twice. I'm toying with destiny, and the forces of the universe itself. It was in moments like these that the peace was suddenly replaced. For the moment Winter saw the same spark of warmth in his brother's eyes, the thoughts were wiped clean, like a mistake taken off of a scroll, something temporary he could lose if he was by his brother's side. It made Winter remember why all had to stay the same it was. The Ice Kingdom was throwing a celebration for Winter's 7th birthday. It was a grand feast, one planned ever since Hailstorm's return. While the royal family didn't mourn for their lost son due to the safety of their Animus, they took advantage of the serenity his safe return brought Winter. They did not even have to lift a talon for it. Hailstorm nudged Winter's shoulder when he exited his room. Fancy night, huh? I never would have guessed, he said teasingly. Winter rolled his eyes. His neck was squeezed by icicles hung gently on a piece of almost glowing string. Each claw was adorned in princely jewelry, with colors out of the Arctic sky itself. The frozen world was projected on Winter's graceful form, shining against the reflective walls of the royal hallway. The Animus tried to ignore his brother's tease. He found the attention he had to draw on himself quite embarrassing. "Says the one whose scales always glow like diamonds." Hailstorm laughed. "Snowfall would kill you if you said that. She thinks she's the prettiest one of us all. Lynx told me that she's still diving into the coldest waters at sunrise. She thinks it's going to help her run for queen one day." Winter couldn't help but try to suppress a smile. Snowfall? As queen? Pretty moon, she'd be a nightmare. Hailstorm nodded, starting to make his way to the end of the hall. She'd be even worse than her sister. Where even is Icicle, anyway? I thought she wanted the throne. Surely she'd keep attending every ceremony for it. Winter shook his head, staring at the floor. Mother is scared of her. After she got the throne from Glacier's passing, she sent Icicle away to Jade Mountain Academy. I'm sure she'll be back, though. It's hard to keep sister away from what she wants. Hailstorm clicked his tongue in agreement. After exiting the royal spire, the two brothers crossed the ice bridge that led to the dining quarters. The bridge seemed to glow blue in the morning, reflecting the sea and the sky like out of a painting. Its smooth, icy floor reminded Winter of shined diamonds. It needed no pillars to stand over top of the snow, bending gently over the walkway below. One of our animi made this, he recalled. She wanted a way to connect all parts of the palace and keep the beauty of the tundra. That was all the way back when dozens of ice wings a century were born of magic. It overflowed in abundance, and the contents of its magic spilled over the cliff of a waterfall. The stream at the bottom was our kingdom. They blessed us all so greatly. How am I supposed to conceive a gift when I'm older? How am I supposed to slip by? Hailstorm will surely be punished for our mistakes. But our tribe needs this gift. They're all counting on me. I'm our first Animus dragon in over 2,000 years. And of course the fairy genetics had to die out forever on me. The one dragon in this entire line who can't seem to get anything right. Not even protect his own brother when he has all the powers in the world. How am I going to be like the dragon who made this bridge? Life is so different from how it was, even just 5 years ago. I don't know if I can be anything like the dragon I'm meant to be. I just can't let Hailstorm get hurt. The dining hall was the most beautiful thing Winter had ever seen. Normally, he stayed in the royal quarters. They had a kitchen of their own to dine next to, but it was nothing like the one they showed to the other circles. This was different. For the moment Winter stepped inside, he felt a rush of energy course through him. He felt powerful. This was a place all the anime in history must have dined in. It was a place that never fell short of glory. The walls were larger than the tops of cliffs. They spanned far off into the sky, glittering gracefully in the sunlight. Huge windows showcased excellent views of polar bears and the purple reflections of the water. Each table was long and the size of a whale on land. The space could fit hundreds, maybe even 1,000 dragons. A stage stood on the other end of the tables, lifted high off the ground. It was a mountain of its own, the steps covered in untouched snow. The ice stairs were perfectly rounded. It was out of a fairy tale. The place was almost empty, inhabited only by cooks and cleaners, ensuring every inch was shinier than the last. In only a few hours, the dining hall would be filled with overlapping voices and beating hearts. There would be dragons from every circle seated at these tables, dining like kings. They must have a lot of faith in me, Winter thought with a twinge of regret. I just wish I could be the Animus they deserved. However, the young Icewing couldn't help but feel overwhelmed at the thought of so many eyes on him. Even for a royal 7th hatching party, this was a lot. Too much, if one were to ask Winter, but he kept his mouth snapped shut. As long as Hailstorm and I can enjoy the night afterwards. He looked at his brother, smiling softly upon his eyes meeting him. Okay, you're definitely being spoiled right now, Hailstorm began. I never got any of this for my 7th birthday. So unfair. He laughed, touching a scarred wing against Winter's stiff form. Relax. Today is going to be your day. And, after the inevitably awkward speeches, we'll sneak out to go scavenger searching in the woods. My present. What do you think? Winter's face immediately lit up. Do you think we'll actually find any this time? I guarantee it. Anything for you, brother. I'll make sure we do. Plus, I've become an expert about scavengers and their weird little antics. I heard some murmurings about a small village they made here. I'm starting to understand why you like them so much. There are some caves just by the border of the kingdom. We can go there tonight. Winter nodded eagerly, rushing over to his brother in a warm embrace. He felt Hailstorm's chest rising and falling against his own, and saw the way he had smiled when Winter moved closer. Finally, something to look forward to about today. The dining hall was far from peaceful the way it had been at sunrise. Dragons clamored to get inside, bowing at the presence of higher circles. Couples made small talk with their family friends, showing off the glittering wealth that was wrapped firmly around each talon. Delectable scents traveled from the kitchens, wafting across the tables. I heard there's enough whales for everybody to get a whole head of one, Winter overheard. He paused on his trek to the royal seating, straining an ear to listen over the many conversations. Really? There's hardly enough whales in the sea for that kind of claim. The icing she was speaking to only shrugged. I bet Winter could make more. You know those fishing holes that are created to produce unlimited meals to the dragons below the circles, right? Her friend nodded. Imagine something like that, only with jewels, or the greatest beasts of the ocean, already cooked. We'd become the richest and strongest tribe on Pyria, dear. The other dragon seemed to love that idea. Well then, I hope he chooses something as grand as that. They're talking about my gift already, Winter thought to himself. He nervously slid past, praying to the great ice dragon that they did not notice him and his nervousness. As conversation ceased, many dragons headed over to their assigned tables. A few villagers from the outer towns were invited to give a good image to the royal family, though they were practically out of view, mere specks to the important dragons. After an opening speech from King Narwhal, dining began. Winter heard the clicks and clacks of 1,000 sets of silverware. Dragons ordered more, praising every course with their flowery words. Queen Tundra sat at the head of the royal table. It was far longer than any of the others, and fitted with a dark blue satin tablecloth. Winter was at her side, with Hailstorm only a tail's touch away. Icicle's seat was empty, and the young Animus felt uneasy at the sight of his sister being somewhere so far. But of course, the precious magical prince could never be seen at a school with common dragons. It felt like an eternity of blissful eating and family updates. Dessert eventually came, and following it was the moment every dragon was gathered for. Tundra took the stage, her walk elegant in form. She stood facing the crowd, looking like a goddess before peasants. Many years ago, we almost lost the most special dragon our tribe has had in a millennia, Tundra began. Her voice was booming and dipped in a new sense of grace. However, my son proved that he does not only need his magic to protect our kingdom, he has wits far beyond anything I have witnessed. Prince Winter is a gift from the great ice dragon herself, someone who will shape our destiny in the fight against the Nightwings. My dragons, we will no longer live in fear with Winter by our side. We know of his brilliance. He found Prince Hailstorm when we thought all hope was lost. And not only that, he brought him out of Scarlet's spires and into our talons safely. It takes courage and resilience to make it out of her prison alive. Winter froze the bars and sliced at them with his claws. Even without his powers, he is a hero. I have dreamed of the day he would present his gift to the tribe, because if he could do all that with just his mind, what about with his magic? We are blessed, my ice wings, and it is time to present my son here on this stage tonight. Cheers erupted from the crowd like a thunderclap. Winter glanced back at Hailstorm, who nodded in encouragement. The young Animus swallowed hard, then followed after his mother's example. It is Winter's transition to adulthood on this day, Tundra continued. And when we are given a gift, we must use it when we can, not wait for it to rot, or delay until the chances of losing it forever. It is here that my son will announce what he is going to give to our tribe with his magic. Winter's heart gave a violent pulse. His lungs ran dry, straining wildly to keep up with the racing of his chest. Here? Right now? Winter thought with a sudden chill of terror. I'm supposed to have 3 more years to come up with a lie. If I tell them I used my spell, I might never see Hailstorm again. But if I don't, I risk losing my soul by performing more with my Animus magic. And in that future, I could lose Hailstorm too. What? Winter blurted out. He hoped his voice was covered by the excited whispering in the crowd. You want me to tell everyone my gift on this stage? Why, yes, son, said Tundra. There should be no problem in that. I've told you to think about it since the day you hatched, and surely there is no way you could have forgotten. I wish I could, Winter thought bitterly. It's all I think about, getting caught. After some irritated looks from guards, talking in the audience began to slow. All eyes were on Winter yet again. I can't, Your Majesty. The silence was louder than in a void. Winter was met only with confused blinks and short, icy breaths beating down on his shoulder from above. Excuse me? I cannot reveal my spell to the tribe, Mother. I haven't thought of one. Winter had finally craned his neck up to look at the Queen. The ends of icicles seemed to stab into every muscle and organ of his body, as he felt the pain of her stare hit him right in his beating heart. Was all she said for a long moment. Winter followed her eyes and swore she was circling Winter's necklace with murderous intent. Like she would strangle him right now if he lacked his Animus blood. Very well, then, Tundra said finally. Because you have not created one of your own, Prince Winter, you will be doing the spell I thought up. The pillars of Winter's mind, the things keeping his thoughts and hopes stable, they all crumbled into small bits. He could see Tundra's icy figure inside his head, stomping and slicing through the rubble, erasing all that was there. I want you to kill every Nightwing, even our spies. Winter felt the blue blood in his veins turn to glaciers. It was as though every artery was sharp and painful, and nothing passed through them. At his silence, Tundra continued. It was what they have tried to do to us for millennia. It's time we return the favor. With your talons, you can craft the perfect weapon, or have their brains shut off in a second. You would be protecting our tribe for generations, saving all our eggs from death at a Nightwing's claws. You would be hailed a hero and continue the legacy of Animus magic in our bloodline. You would be more than royalty. You would be a deity among the great ice dragon herself. Do you have a problem with that, Winter? With saving your kingdom? He could barely think. Lose my soul and save my brother, or just lose my soul? I have to protect Hailstorm. I failed him the first time, and I'll never let it happen again. I do have a problem with that, Your Majesty, as I have already used my magic. Winter saw as everybody's eyes darted around the room, yet the Queen's gaze stayed fixed on her son. Winter wondered if they would ever even move. You what? I used my magic to rescue Hailstorm twice. I cannot use it a third time, Mother. It's too dangerous, and I'm sorry for my mistakes. Young Animus could finally see Hailstorm behind another dragon, and just as that day in the woods had gone, he was unable to see his brother's thoughts in his eyes. Was it a look of horror? Heartbreak? Fear? Release? Winter felt his body tremble, heart pounding with such vigor that he nearly fell down the stage. Tundra's feigned placidness was now replaced with utter and open rage. Do you have any idea how you just doomed us? The young dragon watched his soldiers crept into the corners of his vision. They stood low, holding spears tightly. They approached slowly, coming closer by the second. Unmistakable terror was spilled all over most of their faces. Do they think I've gone insane? Do they think I'm going to hurt them? No, wait, Winter began. That is enough from you. Tundra's voice echoed across the entire dining hall, the sound of her ferocity bouncing off every ice wall. You are the most ungrateful prince I have ever met. To say you came for me is a disgrace to this entire bloodline. Your selfishness is insanity. You have put our entire tribe at risk, not only by not providing a gift, but by using your powers behind our backs. You truly have gotten mad already. The soldiers inched so near that they were only a few claw steps away. Winter could feel their frost breath readying, aimed coldly at his neck. "I apologize, my queen," he began, "but I was only a child then. I was foolish and ignorant. I just wanted to protect my older brother after thinking I had failed him. But now I can have dragonets. With me directly having the magic, we can get a much higher chance of there being another Animus in the family. Maybe they can atone for our mistakes. Maybe they—" Winter knew what Tundra was doing, but he was too late in his racing brain to stop her. In a second, she pounded a fist directly at his face. Members of the audience gasped, with others slipping out of the thin gap in the frozen doors. Blue blood streamed violently down Winter's face. His nostril grew dark, and his right eye blackened. She had hit him. Rivers of blood ran down the boy's scales, his veins pulsing. Upon seeing blood in his claws, Winter felt like a murderer for an act he did not commit. "No," said Tundra. A small smile began to creep away at the sides of her lips. "I think we have enough odds on our own for another Animus, thank you. I would not want your blood contaminating this family more than it already has." Winter grimaced, his front half sticky and oozing blue. "I've always wanted to do that, you know," Tundra laughed humorlessly. "Oh, the satisfaction I feel now. You were indeed right that you do not deserve this magic. You have always been right about that. But no, Winter, I will not be allowing you to have dragonets. In fact, I will not be allowing you to live at all. You have embarrassed me and this family. I did this as something special for you. I surprised you with the treatment of a king. I always have. I would rather make our tribe wait centuries for salvation than provide them with a hero that comes from you." Winter felt as his heart shattered like glass. Every fear ran through him like an energy pulse, and manifested into reality at the sudden spear stabbing of a guard. At the flick of Tundra's talon, an Icewing poked at him. The dragon had done it lightly, almost in sympathy, but another did not give Winter the same kindness. He stabbed through the Animus's claw, hard. "Why the long face, Winter?" Tundra teased. "Can't you just use your magic to heal your wound? You seem mighty fine about using it whenever you please. What makes this time any different, when you think you're above insanity?" "I never said that," Winter replied, spitting blood thickly through his teeth. "I never said any of that. I'm not above insanity. That's the reason I'm doing this. It's why I told any of you in the first place. I don't want you to be at risk because of my mistakes." Hailstorm was out of his chair now, and much closer to the stage than Winter had realized. Another guard raised his spear with murder splayed clearly in his eyes. Just as what had happened all those years ago in the forest, white overtook Winter's vision. Only it was not the unconsciousness or freedom he had wished for. Instead, it was scarred silver rings, the same he saw every day. Winter rolled to the side after Hailstorm slammed him to the ground. His brother hissed at the Icewing guard, who readied his frost breath with a deep howl. "Brother, we need to get out of here!" Winter eyed every window, and saw a rectangular hole in the ice where the kitchens vented into the Arctic. "Up there!" he shouted. Hailstorm whirled around, eyes locked on the spot Winter pointed at. He nodded quickly, then dove off his feet. He flapped his wings wildly, and Winter followed. The civilians and other royalty were clamoring to leave. No one wanted to be blamed for losing them, not with Tundra's current state. Winter turned his neck to the side as he soared out of the tight exit. Unending fury met his look. His mother would have squeezed his heart and sent him out of the sky if she could. Many guards followed the brothers out into the darkened sky. Winter and Hailstorm's diamond scales were illuminated under the starlight, with the latter's prisoner scars making invisible through the thick piles of snow. One soldier tossed a spear at Winter. Two more threw theirs at Hailstorm, hoping that injuring him would take his brother down to help. It was clear they would never lose them if they kept this up. Winter dove down to the edge of the ocean breathlessly. Hailstorm followed his brother, only furrowing his brow in concern when they landed. The other Ice Wings arrived in the same spot. They were only several feet away from the brothers now, the remaining spears held closely to their chests. Winter recognized one of them as the guard who stabbed him in the claw. Blue blood stained his spear tip. All the shame he felt of his mother's speech crushed him. Now Winter felt like the rubble Tundra had made in his mind. It was as though he had lost everything. The entire tribe despised him. He was a dead dragon walking. He was being held at spear point for the choices he made as a child. Everything hit him at once. He lost everything all at once. Would Icicle even want to speak to him anymore? Was she even alive? Or was it another one of Tundra's secrets? Winter felt despair course through his blue veins, and in that moment he hovered a guard's spear right in front of him. All he had to do was think, and the weapon came right out of the dragon's strong grasp. One hit from it, and he'd be dead. One of the many dragons that had hurt him that day would be gone forever. Winter hesitated. He breathed cold puffs into the midnight air. The entire Arctic was silent. Winter. It was all Hailstorm had to say. For a second, he'd forgotten about his brother's presence entirely, and in that second, the prince almost did something horrible. Winter turned to face his brother. He could see a lifetime in his eyes. Winter set the spear down gently with his magic. He even placed it directly in the soldier's talons, who blinked in surprise. The snow was soaked blue where Winter stood, a visual reminder of what they had done to him. All of them. But he refused to bring pain on anybody else that night. Winter only stared at the guards, who were bewildered and still rattled with fear. He looked at them with his own lifetime in his eyes. All his hopes and fears, wishes and realities, his love, his brother standing right next to him. There was an uneasy quiet spread all over the ice for minutes, until finally the dragon who had stabbed Hailstorm began to ready into his flying position. He avoided the prince's gaze and took off into the sky. His squadron followed, some lingering on Winter, and others avoiding eye contact entirely. The young Animus turned to face Hailstorm, who smiled lightly. And they were alone in the snow. Winter sat down on a mat inside of a small cottage. A freckled Icewing brought him hot chocolate, with his sister beginning to clean the boy's wounds. A village on the outskirts of the kingdom had taken them in. They did not ask any questions about why both brothers were bleeding, and did not seem to take any notice of the crown on Winter's head. They saw two dragons in need, and immediately dropped everything to help them. There were only 24 huts in this town, but Winter thought it was perfect. He was shown more kindness, compassion, and humanity in just his first day there than he had been shown as an Animus prince his whole life. Winter and Hailstorm did not fear if Tundra would ever find them. In fact, they did not care if anyone did. They had each other and would submit to the hearts of whoever they found. The moment Winter's body and mind healed from the savagery, he took off with Hailstorm for a day in the forest. Just as he had claimed, there were scavengers everywhere. They had a town of their own, a home they made just as the brothers found for themselves. It was a risk, sure. Anything could happen. For the scavengers, that anything meant dragon-breathing frost or fire on their buildings. And for Hailstorm and Winter, well, it was a fate just as dark. And yet, both groups lived there. They survived. Winter saw how siblings recognized each other, how they had bonds of their very own. And for the first time, Winter felt at peace again. He was with his brother, and that was his home. It always would be. And as Winter thought of his days with Hailstorm, he remembered how his sister was still out there. He often wondered if she was still okay. I mean, how much would it hurt if I checked out that academy someday? Maybe there'll be dragons like me. Or someone for Icicle. A future she can have safely and happily. That doesn't sound like too bad of an idea. But on that day, all Winter did was smile at Hailstorm. The two took off again into the day sky, eyes facing their new home, and not the place that never was. Wow, can you guys believe that I wrote all this on the same day? It was such a fun project that I couldn't stop writing. I'm honestly very satisfied with this part 2, and I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much as I liked making it. I did set things up for a potential third story in this winter AU, so let me know if you guys would ever be interested in seeing an Animus winter attend Jade Mountain Academy. How would things fare with an older Moon Watcher who would know his real story? Does Tundra find him here? What happens when Hailstorm, Icicle, and Winter reunite? We'll see if I get around to making more with this. If it's something you guys would like to see. Thank you all so much for watching. Comment your favorite part down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.